Greetings and welcome for all of you tuned in. You're watching TMH as we bring you our daily English news. Today's news is a little bit more somber, but before we start, let's start with the headlines for today. The Ethiopian government has begun another round of offensive on the Tigray region and its peoples. UN Secretary General shocked by the resumption of this fighting between the Ethiopian government and the Tigrayan forces. And the Tigray government says Ethiopia's claim that it shot down a plane that has allegedly crossed its airspace is quote-unquote a blatant lie. As we move on to our main updates for today, the Ethiopian government has begun another round of offensive on the Tigray regions and their people. In a statement issued today, Tigray's military command said the Ethiopian army, along with the Amhara Special Forces and the Amhara militia, started the large scale around 5 a.m. in the morning local time in the direction of southern Tigray. Breaking the humanitarian truce, Ethiopian government has started this attack in the assumption that the people of Tigray are not able to defend themselves after being siege-starved, and then for them over a year, as the statement stressed. The statement also disclosed that the Ethiopian government had for the past 5 days been repositioning its forces already stationed on the southern front. It also added various Amhara Special Forces divisions and the Wollo Fana militia has, with the participation of the Ethiopian National Defense Force, 6th and 8th Infantry Commands, and 2nd and 6th and 8th Mechanized Divisions, began an extensive offensive starting at the morning of 5 a.m. local time in the direction of Chomber and Jonora, as well as Almata, Bala, and Bisober. The statement said, while the offensive on this front is designed as an auxiliary attack to enable the occupation of southern Tigray, it is well known that the primary offensive is one of the starts from western Tigray, western Gondar in the direction of Aidabo, as well as Alemti. Tigray's military command made it clear that if the enemy does not stop the offensive, it has begun based on a previously known attack plan. Tigray's army is reliably ready to repulse this offensive, transition into a counteroffensive to liberate occupied sovereign Tigrayan territories, and return its displaced people back to their rightful homes. 3 residents around the town of Kobo told Reuters that they heard heavy weapons since the early morning yesterday. They also said that there have been movements of the Ethiopian soldiers and the Amhara Special Forces and volunteer Fano militia within the past 2 days. Ethiopia claims to have shot down a plane that they alleged to have crossed over into the Ethiopian airspace to deliver weapons into the Tigray forces. The Tigray government called this claim a blatant lie, and according to the statement of the Tigray government's External Affairs Office, no plane entered Tigray and no imaginary plane was even shot down. Having already internationalized the war on Tigray, the Abiy Ahmed regime is in search of a boogeyman to justify its ongoing genocidal campaign and the government of Tigray, as they stated in this statement. It added that they aim to present Tigray's campaign of self-defense as an external project and not a struggle for survival. If history is in any guide, the Abiy Ahmed regime is laying the groundwork for the aerial assaults on the Tigray region. The government of Tigray urged the international community to prevail on the Ethiopian government to refrain from its planned indiscriminate attacks on civilians. Sudanese army spokesman Nabil Abdullah said his country had no information about the plane the Ethiopian regime alleged to have crossed the border from Sudan carrying these weapons. The Ethiopian authorities put out inconsistent statements as to the area where the alleged plane was shot down and used a 2021 image of a plane crash from Tucson, Arizona. UN Secretary General shocked by the resumption of fighting between the Ethiopian government and the Tigrayan forces. Antonio Guterres appealed to both sides to immediately take cease and hostilities and ceasefire as well. Take a listen.
I am deeply shocked and saddened by the news of the resumption of hostilities in Ethiopia. Ethiopians, Tigrayans, Amaras, Oromos, Afars have already suffered too much. My strong appeal is for an immediate cessation of hostilities and for the resumption of peace talks between the government and the TPLF, with, at the same time, the full guarantee of humanitarian access to people in need and the reestablishment of public services. Thank you very much.
Reuters said the resumption of fighting is a major blow to the hopes of peace talks between Prime Minister Abiy Ahmed's government and the Tigray forces and TPLF. The Tigray government says allegations that authorities in Tigray are systematically blocking and confiscating remittances needed by millions of people is just extremely baseless. The government of Tigray released a statement in response to the Guardian story titled "Hunger in Tigray, Pushing Women and Girls into Sex Work," published on the 19th of August 2022. The statement noted that while the extreme hardship in Tigray documented in the article shows the Abiy Ahmed regime's deliberate siege, starvation of Tigray, the reporter also makes thinly evidenced allegations against the government of Tigray that deserve some response. The statement particularly called the sensational but baseless article's allegation that the authorities in Tigray are systematically blocking and confiscating remittances needed by millions of people is basically untrue, putting stock in the attributions of Tigray's ongoing calamity to obstacles that a handful of cash smugglers face requires the suspension of disbelief. The statement also said smuggling, done at great risk to lives and savings on the part of smugglers, cannot be a substitute for properly functioning banking services. It also added that the reporter's attempt to present a financial regulation decree by the Tigray government making it illegal to carry more than 100,000 birr to beef up this groundless allegation does not travel far either. After all, the National Bank of Ethiopia has a similar policy, the statement said, adding that the $100,000 birr, limit on cash for individuals is designed to prevent few individuals from hoarding cash and encourage people that have in excess of the amount of cash to deposit it into banks so that the fellow Tigrayans could also have access to even a tiny fraction of that amount and what's available. The statement of the government of Tigray said millions of Tigrayans cannot access their hard-earned savings due to this ongoing blockade of banking. Rather than lying the responsibility for Tigrayans' humanitarian catastrophe where it belongs, at the feet of the genocidal Abiy Ahmed's regime, the reporter spins an inconsequential story about smuggling operations by a handful of individuals into something that it is not, as the statement stressed. Our final update for today: the Ethiopian government demands WFP and OSHA to issue statements condemning the TPLF. In a Twitter post, the government broadcaster EBC reported that the government has demanded the UN agencies to issue statements condemning what is alleged as a TPLF problem. It is to be remembered that the Ethiopian government has been accusing these organizations of smuggling weapons into Tigray in the name of aid. Observers say that this spurious demand is aimed at shifting the blame for the Ethiopian government's inhumane and criminal siege starving of the people of Tigray, while at the same time unleashing yet again another round of an all-out offensive. That wraps up our news for today. Thank you so much for tuning in. Bye-bye.